Most people visit Iceland for the Blue Lagoon, the Golden Circle, the big waterfalls, and all of those are beautiful. But they are also absolutely packed, with tour buses, with selfie sticks, with the same photograph taken by 10,000 people before you. The real Iceland is somewhere else. Today, we find it. Iceland, the island that sits on top of 2 tectonic plates, 24 active volcanoes, and some of the most raw and dramatic landscapes this planet has ever produced. We are uncovering 10 hidden gems that will completely change how you see this extraordinary country. Stay till number 1, because it is the most surreal natural place I have ever stood on this planet. And I mean that completely. We start with a place so hidden that GPS will take you the wrong way to find it. Gjain Valley. While tourists drive past on the way to Landmannalaugar, this tiny valley sits completely invisible from the road. You park. You walk a short trail through lava fields, and then the ground opens, and you descend into what looks like a secret garden that Iceland kept for itself. Waterfalls pour from every direction into pools of crystal water. The walls are made of ancient lava, draped in moss, so green it glows. Wildflowers grow between the rocks, and you can have this entire place to yourself, something that is almost impossible at the famous Icelandic waterfall sites just an hour away. From the secret valley, we travel to the part of Iceland that even most Icelanders admit they have never fully explored, the Westfjords. This remote peninsula in the northwest of Iceland accounts for over half of the country's total coastline and receives just 5% of its tourists. 5%. On over half the coastline, the roads here cling to cliff edges above fjords so deep and still that the mountains reflect in them perfectly. The Latrebjarg bird cliffs at the western tip are the largest seabird cliffs in Europe. 14 kilometers long, 440 meters high, and so remote that the birds have never learned to fear humans. You can sit 1 meter from a puffin. It will look at you with complete indifference. The Westfjords are not easy to reach. That is the entire point, and that is exactly why they are extraordinary. And if the Westfjords felt remote, what comes next takes remote to a completely different level. This next stop brings us to the interior Highlands of Iceland, a region so geologically violent that it is only accessible for 3 months of the year. Kerlingarfjoll. These are mountains unlike anything else on Earth. The rock here is a palette of impossible colors: deep orange, brick red, sulfur yellow, charcoal black, all stained by centuries of geothermal activity. Steam vents rise from the ground between the peaks. Hot springs bubble between snow patches. The landscape looks like it was designed by someone who had never seen a normal mountain and was simply making it up. The famous Landmannalaugar gets thousands of visitors. Kerlingarfjoll, just 30 kilometers away, gets a fraction. Same geological drama. Half the people. Wait, I know what you are thinking. Gjogv is in the Faroe Islands, not Iceland, and you are right. But the Faroe Islands are 45 minutes by plane from Reykjavik. They share the same North Atlantic wildness, and they belong in every conversation about Iceland travel, because almost nobody who flies to Reykjavik ever thinks to add them. Gjogv is a village of 50 people built at the end of a dramatic gorge that drops straight to the sea. Turf-roofed houses, sheer cliffs, a tiny natural harbor cut into the rock where a single boat sits, and a hiking trail that takes you to a ridge above the clouds where the Atlantic disappears in every direction below you. If Iceland is wild, the Faroe Islands are wilder, and Gjogv is their secret heart. And from the Highlands, we come back down to something that almost became too famous to visit. Fjadrargljufur Canyon went viral in 2019 when Justin Bieber filmed a music video here, and then it had to close because the moss was being destroyed by the sudden flood of visitors. It has since reopened with strict path rules, but here is the secret. Go on a weekday, go in the first hour after dawn, and walk the full 2-kilometer ridge trail to the very end. Because 90% of visitors photograph the canyon from the first viewpoint and leave. The final viewpoint, where the canyon curves like a sleeping dragon and the river below is a thread of pure emerald, is one of the great landscapes of Iceland. And it is almost always empty. 2 million years old, 100 meters deep, and somehow still largely unknown outside of one music video. I need you to understand what you are looking at. This is Viti, a crater lake inside an active volcanic caldera in the Askja region of Iceland's interior. The name Viti means hell in Icelandic, and yet you can swim in it. The water is geothermally heated to around 30 degrees. The crater walls rise above you in perfect circles of red and black volcanic rock. Steam drifts from the edges, and you float in this water, inside a volcano, in the middle of Iceland's uninhabited highland desert, looking at a landscape that genuinely looks like another planet. NASA has used the Askja region to train astronauts for lunar missions. That is the level of otherworldly we are talking about. From volcanoes, we come back to civilization, but barely. Siglufjordur is a tiny fishing town of 1,200 people tucked at the end of a narrow fjord in North Iceland, surrounded on 3 sides by mountains that drop directly into the water. For decades, it was accessible only by sea. The road through the mountain tunnel was only built in 1940, and it shows. The town has a preserved time capsule quality that Reykjavik lost decades ago. At its peak, in the 1940s, Siglufjordur was the herring capital of the world, processing more herring than any port on Earth. The award-winning Herring-era museum tells that story better than almost any museum in Iceland. And the town itself, with its colorful wooden houses and complete lack of tourists, is simply one of the most photogenic places in the entire country. Hverir, a geothermal field near Lake Mývatn in North Iceland that looks less like Earth and more like the surface of Mars. The ground here is alive. Boiling mud pools bubble and spit. Steam vents roar like jets. The soil is stained every shade of orange, red, and yellow by sulfur deposits. The smell hits you before you see it. Sharp, volcanic, ancient, and the landscape stretches to the horizon in colors that have no business existing on this planet. Hverir sits next to the famous Hnaefafjall geothermal ridge, and while most tourists spend 20 minutes at the roadside viewpoint, the full walk across the geothermal field takes you through features that look like they were rendered by a science fiction production designer on an unlimited budget. This is Iceland at its most geologically honest, at its most raw, at its most remind you that you are standing on a thin crust above a churning planet. From Hverir's volcanic fury, we travel to the opposite, to silence, to emptiness, to the most remote corner of Iceland that can be reached without a helicopter. Hornstrandir Nature Reserve sits at the very tip of the Westfjords Peninsula. There are no roads, no permanent inhabitants, no electricity. The only way in is by boat from Siglufjordur, and once you arrive, you are entirely, completely alone with one of the most spectacular wilderness coastlines on Earth. The sea cliffs here rise 534 meters from the ocean. Arctic foxes, found nowhere else in Iceland with this density, walk up to within meters of you because they have simply never learned fear. Minke whales surface in the fjords. The midnight sun turns the sky colors that have no names yet. Hornstrandir is where Iceland goes when it wants to be left alone, and it is the most profoundly peaceful place I have stood in my entire life. I saved the best for last, and everything I'm about to tell you is real. Thorsmork, Thor's Valley, sits in the southern highlands of Iceland, completely surrounded on all sides by 3 glaciers. Eyjafjallajökull, the volcano that shut down European airspace in 2010, is one of them. Mýrdalsjökull is another, and Tindfjallajökull completes the trinity of ice that walls this valley from the outside world. The only way in is by superjeep. The rivers that cross the road are too deep for normal vehicles, which means that in a country of extraordinary landscapes, this one has an extra layer of protection, an extra filter that keeps the casual tourist out. Inside, the landscape is everything Iceland promises in its tourism photographs, and rarely fully delivers. Black sand riverbeds braided between banks of vivid green moss, volcanic peaks emerging from glacier tongues, hiking trails that take you to ridges where you can see every direction at once, glaciers behind you, ocean ahead, and the entire southern lowlands of Iceland spread below like a map. The famous Laugavegur Trail ends here. The Fjadrargljufur Trail, across the pass between two glaciers, begins here. And on a clear evening in midsummer, when the light turns gold and the glaciers glow and the rivers reflect the sky, Thorsmork will make you understand why the Vikings named this valley after their most powerful god. This is Iceland at its absolute peak. This is the Iceland that will change you. 10 hidden gems. 2 countries sitting on the edge of the Arctic. And not a single tour bus in sight. We went from a secret garden hidden in a lava field to the end of the world on a cliff above the Atlantic, to a valley named after a god, surrounded by 3 glaciers that have been there since before Iceland was Iceland. Iceland is not a destination, it is a force of nature, and it deserves to be seen on its own terms. Off the tourist trail, without the tour bus, at the hour when the light turns gold, and you realize you are completely, gloriously alone with one of the most extraordinary places on this planet. Save this video. Plan with it. I will see you in the next one.